Crystalline here at Rainbow Bowl Studios. Today I'm going to show you how to make these adorable little maple leaves that you can use over and over and over again. And the things that you're going to need today, you're going to need a slab of clay as big as the leaves that you're going to make. This is about 1/4 inch thick. You're going to need an old cutting board, something that you can cut on that it doesn't matter that it's all dented up. You're going to need some kind of roller to roll the leaf impression into your clay. You can use a small roller like this, or you can use a rolling pin. I use a piece of 2-inch PVC pipe for my rolling pin. That's what I use in my studio. So you can use that if you would like. You're also going to need an Exacto knife. You're going to need a rubber rib or silicone rib. You're going to need a metal rib of death, a scoring tool, a rubber tipped tool. You're also going to need some kind of tool to pick the leaf out of the clay once you get it embedded in there, and a sponge. So those are the things that you're going to need to do the embossing of the clay and cutting them out. Other things that you're going to need is you're going to need a scale, and I just use the scale that I use in my studio. You're going to need a cup for your silicone mix and something to mix your silicone in. Now, this mug unfortunately had a bad accident at a show, so it has no handle, so I just use that as a mixing container for my silicone. You need to make sure that once you're done mixing your silicone and pouring it onto your mold, that you wipe out this really quickly, or use a disposable cup, because it is nearly impossible to get the silicone out. Today I'm using Mold Max 29 NV, and this is a 2-part mold, 29 NV by Mold Max, and it's a Smooth On Corporation product. Your mixing ratio is going to be 100 by 10, 100 by 10, so you're going to put 100 part A and 10 part B. So that's your mixing ratio, and that's your mold mix silicone. So that's what, all right, so now what I've done is I've got the leaves on my clay that I rolled out to 1/4 inch thick, and I'm just using my little rib, and I'm just getting it all flattened out so it'll be nice and smushed, that's the technical term, into the clay. Now, I could do this a whole bunch of different times to actually make something, but since I'm going to use some silicone and I'm going to make a mold that I'll be able to use later, so I'm going to pull the leaf out like that, and what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to end up pulling the silicone, pouring the silicone over the leaf. Just pulling it out just like that. And then I'm going to let this dry for a little bit. And once it dries, then I'm going to go back with the silicone and pour it out. And pour the silicone over it. Here we are. And I have my Mold Max NV, or Mold Max 29 NV Part A. It's 100 Part A, 10 Part B. So what we're going to do is we're going to add our Mold Max into our vessel that we're going to use to mix. And I'm going to do 200 grams. And I'm putting the silicone in something that I can take after the silicone has cured. I can peel it right out. This is an old piece of pottery, and that has a broken handle, and we're going to tear our cup, and so we're going to add 20 grams of our part B, and this is our part B here, if I can get it open, and then we've shaken it up really well, and we're going to add 20 grams of part B. There's 20 grams of part B. And this is the Mold Max number 29. So we have 21, which is 21. It's almost a 21. But what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and pour it into here. Get as much out as we can. And then we're just going to stir it up. Whoops. Try not to get it on your work surface. It's probably a good idea to lay down, I don't know, some paper towels or some newspaper or something and not get this all over your work surface. That's probably the best idea. Okay, so now we have our silicone mixed up. We are going to get our leaf impressions and we're going to pour the silicone into leaf impressions. I have my leaf impressions here, and what we're going to do is we're just going to pour the silicone right on top of there, and we're going to try to get it on the leaves. Now, if you feel like you need more silicone, you could go ahead and mix up some more and get it to flow into the different pieces better. Or you could just take some from one part. Like this needs some right here, so we're just going to put a little bit more just so that it's even. All right, now we have let the clay set up a little bit, and I am just going to peel it off of the clay. We let the silicone set up, and I'm just peeling it off. And look at that. You can totally see the leaf imprint in the silicone. Now, I don't want to use this now because I don't want to mess up the silicone, so I'm going to lay it flat and let it finish curing. Okay, so what we have here is the silicone leaf that I poured earlier, and it has not quite cured yet. There's still got like another 24 hours to cure completely. So now I'm trying to cut it out so that we can just have the leaf pattern. So what I'm gonna do is I have a little old cutting board here, and I just took some Sharpie and I just put the Sharpie on so I could see where the lines were, because it was really hard to see because it was all the same color. And so now this is just an old cutting board that I bought at the thrift store that I can cut on so I don't damage my surfaces. So I'm just gonna cut out where the leaf goes, the leaf edge is, with an Exacto knife, just like that. So this is basically how it's gonna turn out, and you can see the leaves, the veins and stuff in the leaves. So this, I'm gonna cut them all out, and then we'll make some clay with it and see how it looks. So what I have now is my cut out little leaves from the silicone, and what we're gonna do is prep our slab. So I'm just gonna take some water and just lightly mist the slab. It is really dry here. As we all know, I live in Arizona and it is dry, dry, dry. So I'm just gonna take and just get that texture off of my slab. And so now we're gonna flip the slab over, but first, before we flip the slab over, we are going to spread some cornstarch on it so it doesn't stick to our wear board. And this is just regular old kitchen cornstarch. And I'm just dusting it like you would dust your flour surface when you're making bread. It's just to keep the work surface from sticking. That makes it just a little bit easier when you flip over your pieces. There we go. And then we do the same thing on this side. We prepare our slab and we're just going to go over it in several directions. And this is a slab that I've rolled out to about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit less. But once I get it all smoothed out, it's maybe a little bit less than 1/4 inch. And you just want to go diagonal, back and forth, all the different directions with your silicone rib. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get our shape that we are going to make, and we're going to start right about there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it about the width of this roller on each side. So now we have our slab, and I just made a little impression in it by accident, but that's okay. We can smooth it back out. Choo choo choo, just like that. Alright, so it doesn't have to be perfect. So now we have our slab, and what we're going to do is we're going to put our leaves. Now I'm not going to put the stems on these because I don't know, I just like it like that. So maybe we'll put them together at a diagonal. Whoops. Alright, so maybe we'll just put the leaves like that. That looks okay. Alrighty, now we're just going to take our little roller and we're just going to roll in our leaf. Now I'm not going to press too hard, just a little bit hard, just enough to get that leaf impression in there because you want it nice and seated. But you don't want to press so hard that you're really expanding the clay too much, because you don't want your clay to get thinner in this spot too much, because then what will happen is you'll get cracks in your clay. Alright, so we'll lift our silicone leaf impression out. Oh, that looks cute. We'll lift our other one out. Now we are going to put it on our tray. So here's our tray. Let's flip it over. There we go. I'm going to do it again. Now I got it a little off center, but that's And what I've made is a foot maker. So I didn't buy a little maker for a foot. I am just gonna put a little square foot on there, and this is just a old trimming tool that I took and I ground off the flat part. Do the same thing on this side. Now we're going to take our stamper, or my stamper, my Rainbow Bowl stamper, and I'm just going to stamp right here in the middle. I've slightly wetted it just so that it does not stick to the clay. Pull it out, get some of the water off of it. There we go, and now we're going to flip it over. And I'm going to flip it over on this little board just so that it does not warp very badly. Now we're just gonna, lift off the form. Ooh, I almost dropped it. And there we go. And then when this dries, I'll clean it up a little bit more, cut the edges a little bit and clean it up. But right now, I think this looks pretty great. Right now, clay share, I'm gonna let it set up, and then I'll come back and trim it up a little bit and make it just look a little bit nicer and cleaned up so it's not quite so even. And there we have it. A beautiful maple leaf tree